I'd like to know your point of view.
Here's why is there a smear campaign in the first place? Well, the reason for the smear campaign in the first place is so that they can get their word in first and they can get their story out there first, because they know how humans work. They know how the process works. They know how people are with conflict, and if they can get their story in there first, and they can get people convinced of that there are chances and that you then have to come in and change opinions, that you're not going to have a lot of success doing that. You're going to look like the crazy one. You're going to look like the one that's lying, and they know this, and so that's why they do it. And they also do the smear campaign because they have something they want, and so they have to set up a story so that they can have what they want, and in a way that makes them look okay getting it. So say what they want. Well, in my case, what my husband wanted was he wanted a divorce after I had gotten really sick, right? But he didn't want anybody to think that he was just leaving me, or he was that kind of a schmuck, kind of a guy, that he would do that. He wanted anyone to think he was greedy or a bully or a bad guy. And so he had to come out and make it look like I had a problem. I was a drug addict. I wasn't really just sick. I was a drug addict. And that isn't this convincing, because I'd have her parents on my side, because he got my family on his side, by triggering them, by telling them that I thought this about them. I thought I said all these negative things about them. And so that's how he got them to backstab me and help him. But to all anybody else sees is they see, oh gosh, he's saying this, and he seems like such a sincere, sensitive guy, and he's got her family on his side. They don't know that my family was already abusive. They don't know any of that, and so it just looks convincing to all of them. And then the few times, of course, I was really, again, I said this I've said this over and over again, but I was really, really in the worst case scenario, because I didn't know any of this. I wasn't asking these questions until years after it was over. So anyone who's asking these questions is in the midst of it is really way better off than I was. Definitely wasn't helping myself, because I wanted to believe lies more than anybody else. So I believed him forever. And then when I finally figured it out, or when someone said something to me that was such a shocking lie, like a friend or somebody completely unrelated said something to me was completely false, and I was like, then I was so stunned by it, and I jumped to defend myself. The reaction was not at all what I thought it was going to be. First of all, you don't expect anything like this would ever happen. You don't expect anything like this would ever happen in the first place. But when it does start happening, you start realizing that what your expectations were, and your expectations would be, if someone ever came out saying something bad about me, I would expect my lifelong friends to say, that doesn't sound like her. That doesn't sound like her. Do you have any evidence? I've never seen. I'd have to see some evidence, or see it myself, or something, or ask her some questions, see what she has to say. And it was really surprising how few people needed that. How many people were willing to just go with just what he said, and seeing my parents on his side and all that. And they weren't necessarily bad people, but there were some that definitely were. There were some that maybe weren't narcissists, but he got them, and I think they get a thrill out of doing this. I think they get a thrill out of getting people to do things that are nefarious, that maybe they think are morally better than them, because they can trigger things that they know they want. Greed is a really perfect example. Greed. So he got people, friends of ours, it was a friend of his mostly, but it was like my son's godfather, who was a real estate agent, who was not a narcissist. He was just a regular guy. But he got him to do things that were illegal, that jeopardized his license, that were totally against me, because if he did them, he'd get a big commission. And from what I understand, from what my kids have said, they really hardly ever saw him again. We were with these people a lot when we were married. They were really close friends of ours. And so I think what happened is that my ex-husband used one of his best friends to do things against me that the friend may not have known the full story, but he knew enough to know that I wasn't there sitting in front of him signing these things. He knew that even if my husband was saying I did sign them, he didn't have any proof of that. I wasn't in front of him signing them like I was supposed to be. So he passed along forged documents, put things through sales, and he had loans put through for another friend, put loans through. He had things go through with forged documents that should never have gone through. And he got people that he thought of as, probably morally better than him to do that. And that was a thrill for my ex-husband. I'm sure of it. I'm just sure of it. But it also at the same time took a wedge in their relationship, because they were all a little exposed to each other then. It was like they knew who my ex-husband was a little bit more, and they also knew that being around him, he made them be someone that they didn't want to be. That around him they did something that they wouldn't normally do, and so it had an impact on their relationship. Not as much of an impact as it had on my relationship with them, because I have no relationship with any of them immediately, but it definitely had an impact on their relationship. And the whole thing, this guy, when I think about sometimes I think about him, and just this group of people that we were, and that there were obviously there were people there with personality disorders that had character weaknesses. And what you see is that there's this sort of chance that what happened infiltrated into this community of people with weak characters. This poison that made everyone behave worse. That everyone that sociopathic husband touched, everyone was damaged by it in one way or another, whether or not they were aware of it. That's what I see. I see that there was no one has ever benefited by having a relationship with him. It made them a worse person. It destroyed them like it did to me, or it did to my sons. Or it made them just a less of a person, not as good of a person.
You're